Victor,
Hello.
hello. Good to see you, bro.
Good to see you too, man.
Um, so I'm gonna start by saying I'm gonna do a little introduction actually. So thanks for joining me.
Thank you
Um,
for inviting.
and I'm really looking forward to what we can discuss because I know there's quite a lot of similarities, I think, in uh in our journeys, I believe anyway,
Mm.
with certain things. So I'm looking forward to that. So I'll begin by saying I know you through work.
Yep.
That's how we first met, wasn't it? It was quite some time ago now. Because you're in Europe, I'm in obviously the UK.
Mhm.
And we got acquainted through. Do you wanna describe that one? Do you wanna get into that one?
Definitely. Saying that I'm in Europe while you're from the UK, we sound so far away, but it's luckily not that far. Um, we know each other through our work. Indeed, we've met. You were doing some jobs for the place that I'm working at right now, and I think that's how we got to talk to each other. And throughout I think about 4 years that I've worked for this place now, we've been in quite a lot of contact and been able to help each other with a lot of people and making sure that a lot of people that need help get the help that they need. So I think that's one of the main things on how we know each other. We use each other in a good way.
Like it, like it. Yeah, I concur. So, what is it you do?
I work for a clinic with a program for youngsters, for people who are in need of help, who people who are struggling with either addiction, with mental health issues. And I think one of the main reasons that well, I also just really like this job and that I'm doing this job is because I've been there myself as well.
Mhm.
Um, the clinic that I am working for right now is a clinic that I went to myself in the past, which is almost 10 years ago now. The 26th of May is my 10-year anniversary this year.
Eh,
So that's very cool.
amazing.
And having been to this place and having been able to transform myself um, really got me into a place where I feel like I could use all of my, well, actually, all of the negativity that I've been through in the past and use it for something good.
Mm.
Use it to help other people, use it to inspire other people, to motivate other people to get some help themselves. And um, in the end, I've got to be honest that I don't mind. And for me, it doesn't matter whether they go to the clinic that I work for right now or whether they get help anywhere else. As long as they get some help, if they need it, that's a victory for me.
Love that. That's a similarity straight there, straight off the bat. The reason you do it is because you've been there, same as me, you know. Um, it certainly helps, I think, when people say, what's your qualification? I'm like, well, my PhD is in the fucking gutter, mate. It's on the street. That's so cheesy, but it's true, like I've really, had to live my own horrors to be qualified to actually deal with such matters. So that's my qualification, life experience, and I got a lot of it. So great stuff, thank you. So Victor, is it? Would you call yourself a case manager? I think you're more than that. I
Yeah,
I
case
do.
manager. I think it is my title, but at the same time, I think the job of case manager, it says a lot and it says nothing at the same time. Because
Yeah.
whenever you say to someone, "I'm a case manager here," then well, nobody knows what you're doing actually.
Yeah.
Um, but I think one of the core points of a case manager, especially at the place where I work as well, is someone who is able to stand next to families, to fellows before coming to the place that I work for right now. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things that I can do as well, stand next to people who are just starting their journey to recovery themselves and be able to help them, to support them, to sometimes also hold up that mirror a little bit and confront them with their own bullshit, as the Dutch people are very good at. But I think I just love being able to stand next to everyone.
Yeah, you're good at it, man. You are, because you've got that experience. You spot the bullshit. Yeah, you yeah, you Dutchies, man. You're fucking hardcore. You
We
don't
love being direct.
you don't mince your word. You don't. Is that what I'm saying? You don't mince your words. Anyway, straight to the point. No pussyfooting around like the typical British person. I've learned a lot from you guys, actually. I think I've adopted the Dutch way, or I've got part of the Dutch way in me anyway. I'm pretty direct when I want to be, and just
You're very good at it.
well, so are you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Victor. And we've worked on many cases. I think you've thrown stuff to me, and I've obviously brought stuff to your door. So there's definitely a good working alliance there, which can only really take place when you're kind of working in a systematic way, right? That's what I think.
Yeah, well, the structure is important, but I also think the trust is really important, and I believe that there's a lot of trust, especially between the whole team of case managers that I work in and
Mm.
you. We almost every now and then joke about it about why not call Dave? He'll get it done anyway.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm a bit of a, I don't know if perfectionist is the right term. Yeah, I guess I am. So, I'm a bit of a, once I dedicate to a cause, that's it. I'm latched on. I ain't gonna stop until I get it done. You know what I mean?
Yes, really. Yeah.
Um, anyway, so that's where you're at the moment. And um, you obviously had a journey to get to that point because you said 10 years ago in May, you
Yeah.
must have been in a place where you were obviously, I don't know, I think it'd be good if you, in your own way, describe that and get into that if that's all right. Just
Yeah.
rewind. Let's press the rewind button and go back.
Yeah, of course. Well, to put it very blunt and direct in Dutch, when I was 19 years old, 10 years ago, I was actually just ready to kill myself. I had done a couple of suicidal attempts at that point already. I think I've done about 5 or 6 throughout my life. Because there were just so many points in my life that I felt like I was not worth being here, that I felt not good enough, that I felt like things were just way too much for me, that I couldn't bear the responsibility. And when I was 19, I got an intervention through my parents. They organized an intervention which gave me a choice: either find help or, well, we're going to cut you out of our lives, which was very hard to hear from them, and a very tough thing for them to say. But at the same time, it was something that I really needed to hear because I was so stuck in, well, actually, gaming addiction. I was playing like 13, 14 hours a day, just hiding myself from the real world because I just didn't want to be there. I felt very unsafe in that real world and was very insecure about myself. And whenever I was in the online world, I could hide myself from that. I could either be someone else or actually be myself every now and then because that felt more comfortable. And people liked me in the online world and could talk to me. And it was way easier to, whenever someone would say something shit about me, to just dismiss them and delete them as a friend or block them or just get them out of my life in that sense. So I built up this very kind of safe world for me online, and I just kept escaping to it. I didn't want to be in the real world anymore. At that point, I was kicked out of my school. I couldn't hold a job. I was so afraid to even go um, to job vacancies or fill in job vacancies. Where eventually because my mother, I was living with my mom at the time. She did want me to do something, so I sent like a letter to a place, to just a restaurant, to just work there as a waiter or something, or a dishwasher or whatever. It didn't matter to me. And that way I could show my mom, like, hey, see, I am putting in the work. But then the moment I got invited, I just didn't dare to show up. I was so scared of the rejection I would get in advance already that I would just ignore them and avoid them and go away. And the more I did that, the more I felt ashamed of what I was doing, and the more I felt ashamed, the more I was hiding in my virtual world again. Um, and when I look back at where all of this came from, it actually started at a very young age for me already. I remember when I was very young. I've been bullied a lot, for example, in class, really to the point where, well, one of the worst things that happened to me is that I got hung from a skipping rope to a climbing rack. Someone tied a knot around the climbing rack and put my neck around the rope and just left me to hang there for a moment.
The fuck? Honestly,
Yeah,
I've never heard that from you. I mean, why would you tell me that? I mean, that's something that, wow, that's really, you know, shit.
yeah,
Fuck.
yeah. The terrible things happened, especially at high school and elementary school. Um, to a
How
point where
can I just ask you, how old was you? What age was that? I'm just trying to work out, obviously, fucking hell for you, that, whatever age it was, that was fucking horrible. But the dudes or whoever that did it, what the fuck is going on in their depraved little minds to do that? What age was that?
it was around 8, 9 years old.
Fuck me.
Yeah, yeah. So I was a very, very young guy, already very insecure about myself. I just got glasses, for example, around that age as well. So I was already going through a lot of change, and they were kind of picking on me for that as well. And my insecurity just dropped like insanely hard. And I've always been a very curious guy, actually. I've always been very interested in why things happen and always wanted to know. When I was little, I always read these little science-based books, for example, and I did all these weird little experiments because I just wanted to know how things work. But this also worked for when people did things, well, or people their behavior was. So I just want to know why those bullies did this to me. Um, the problem
Yeah.
with that, though, because I had no idea of finding a reason with them, I started looking at myself.
Mm,
So I really started looking, what am I doing wrong, and what is wrong with me? Why are they picking on me? But that got me into a cycle of only looking at the things that were wrong with me. So
mm,
there was a point where I just couldn't see any positive things about myself anymore. Started being ashamed of everything I did. Started basically punching myself down for everything I did already as well before I even did them, because I was just so scared of fucking up, of making mistakes, of not doing the right thing. Became a huge people pleaser through that as well, and this got quite well, at home it was quite the same. I've got a mother who often says that I didn't do things right, and she always wanted me to do things differently. And my father is a bit more motivating, at least trying to be a bit more motivating in that by saying you can do better. But at the same time, my head translated that as well in I'm not doing it good enough.
mm,
Um, so that feeling of just not being worth it, not being good enough, grew throughout my puberty. And I remember, especially when I went from elementary school to high school, there was a moment where I had actually quite a lot of hope. That first day of high school was a very scary thing. But I built
gotcha.
up, oh, it's terrible, honestly. But at the same time, I had quite a lot of courage and quite a lot of hope that things could be different. And I've been used to so many bullies and so many negative experiences at school. I felt like this is going to be different because it was a new school with new people, new teachers, new students. Everything was new. So I thought, maybe it could go differently as well. But again, in the first class I was assigned to, there were immediately some guys who picked on me right away. And I don't know what it is, but I am so sure that they can just feel who to bully because they feel who's not going to punch back anyway,
Can I
which was
just,
me.
yeah, can I just interject? Sorry to interject
Yeah.
because I know you're in your flow. I'm relating to everything you're saying big time, like, because this is what I'm talking about. Like when I said earlier about, very similar. Our stories are very different, but there's so many similarities. And what you're describing, I'm really like connecting to. That vulnerability. That's what I just wanted to say. I believe this is the way I see it, that when we're hugely vulnerable. You know, when we feel very vulnerable, it's like
Mm,
it's almost like a scent. You know, it's like they can smell it.
yeah.
Um, they just know, and you know, that's not a great place to be in going forward. So
No.
sorry, continue.
No, 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 that's okay. No, it's exactly that indeed. And I think it was very well explained about how I don't know what again, I don't know what it is that they can sense it so well,
Hmm.
who to pick on and at the same time, I gotta admit I was a very easy child because around that time I got braces as well. I was a very small kid. I got my glasses, I got my braces, and this very insecure kid that was very kind of held back from everything and everyone. I was isolating myself quite a lot back then already as well. So I was just an incredibly easy target for them. And I remember coming home from that first day of high school and being so damn disappointed in myself and that it happened again. That was also the first time that I did a suicidal attempt. I was 12 years old and I already felt like fucking hell, life is not for me. Um, so that terrible. It's really a terrible thing for people to do. Um,
Do you feel you had anyone, um, like you mentioned mum and dad, um, mentioned that your dad was, you know, encouraging as best he could be. And I know that your mum, you know, was given what she was given in life and she's just doing her best with what she's
yeah,
got. But, you know, I feel like you probably needed a little bit more than what you was getting. Um, and, you know, have you got any siblings?
yeah. I've got one older sister.
Okay, so that's your family, right?
Yeah.
That you live with at that time in your life. Are you talking to anyone about this?
Not really, because I was just so scared to talk about it and so afraid that like I said, I already heard from them that I either should be doing better or wasn't doing good enough.
Hmm.
So I was so afraid and again so ashamed to talk about what was happening. And for example, my dad once told me a story about him when he was in high school and how he actually did stand up to bullies and how he said, "Yeah, I took the biggest one and I punched the shit out of him, and they never touched me again." Um, and even though uh, I really looked up to my dad back then, so I really wanted him to approve of me, to say to me that he's proud of me. And I thought if I tell him that this happened to me, he's never going to be proud of me. So I should not. So I kept quiet, and actually to
Mm.
everyone, I just didn't want to talk about it because I was so ashamed of it.
Mm. That's such a common thing. Sick as your secrets, as they say.
Yeah.
All right, so man, okay, continue. So that's where you're
Yeah.
at.
Yeah, exactly. And from that point on, I actually got to a psychologist already, which helped a little bit because my grades
Mm.
started going down, which is how my mom found out at least I wasn't doing well. Again, I didn't tell her about the suicidal attempt I did back then, but she did notice that things were not going well. So she asked a psychologist for help, which was actually quite nice, to be honest. I would had someone to talk to, someone to vent a little bit, to talk about all of these things. And even though I did learn some things from that psychologist, especially about myself, she helped me work a little bit more on my identity and finding out who I was. At the same time, the bullies kept going at school, and then eventually it started getting worse on high school as well, where it became physical, where they started punching me again, where they started waiting me outside of school. So it unfortunately got worse and worse again there as well. And I'm not sure how that goes with you guys, but here, if you go to a psychologist as a kid, you get just a certain assigned amount of sessions usually. So I was just assigned 8 sessions from the beginning, and that's all I got. So when those 8 sessions were finished, I was done as well. And even though it went a little bit better. Like I said, the bullying at school got worse, so I started going downhill myself really hard after that. And I think that's the point where I usually always start identifying myself as an addict, because that's the point where I really started gaming more and more, and really started to hide from everything and everyone.
So with the gaming, you latched on to. I wasn't because I was going through a very similar thing, to
Mm.
you with the bullying and the, that vulnerability and the low self-esteem and not feeling good enough and just feeling a failure and the inadequacy that comes with that and the shame that comes with that, all of that stuff, and I was definitely very sick because of my secrets,
Mhm.
emotionally, mentally, spiritually, Um, I latched on to certain things. I never latched onto gaming because we didn't have I don't know, I just didn't have a computer. Didn't have that opportunity to have a computer at that time in my life. Would I have got into gaming? Maybe, I don't know. But I got into other things, right? So I'm just interested to know why gaming?
Think it was the easiest for me. We always had I've always played games like when I was 7 or 8 already. I had this little Game Boy where I could play Pokemon on there or things like that. Um, and it's just a thing that is so easy to have access to. Honestly, even though I totally identify as an addict, I had alcohol a lot when I was still in active addiction, and I gamed a lot. I've never done drugs in my life. If you'd asked me back then where to get some drug, I just didn't know, because I wasn't known and not familiar at all with well, the streets and the outside world at all. Because I was so much a guy who isolated himself. I didn't have that knowledge, so I just didn't ever get to it. So that gaming was just a very easy thing for me to get into because I had a computer at home. I had like I said, a Game Boy at home. And eventually, when more gaming consoles came out, I got like an Xbox, and more, which all helped me kind of fuel that addiction.
And I can't really. I mean, look, I got addicted to Angry Birds once, which was on my mobile phone. Um, that was like, I don't know, my little gaming um, use up that I had once. I was on it for about a year. And I got rid of it because I recognized that, I was addicted to it. But I was already sort of, on a journey of understanding what addiction was and all of that
Mhm.
stuff. But um, I don't know. I'm intrigued. I just like for me, I've never really talked about. I have to work with, as you know, we work with a lot of people who've got savage screen addictions,
Yes.
savage gaming addictions, and I never can really truly, really say that I understand, apart from my little use up with Angry Birds. But I mean, am I right in saying? Whether you're using drugs or alcohol or sex, porn, whatever, I don't know, shopping online, gambling, whatever it is, just food, whatever we're doing, gaming, screen addiction, right? Do you think it's all, what is it to you? I mean, for me, I see it as it's all a distraction to be with
Yeah.
myself. It's escapism, it's avoidance.
Yeah, that's it. It's an escape place. It's a whole different online world where you can hide in. It's a huge hiding spot, where you can hide yourself from all of your feelings, your shame, your guilt, your sadness, your anger. Everything can, or at least for me back in the day, everything I could forget when I was playing these games or being online or I remember I made a screenshot of there was this game I played on my phone back then, um, where even the smallest interactions with people, I just said in a chat with a lot of people that I was going to bed, and I said good night, and there were 20 people who immediately reacted saying, good night, Victor. It was fun having you on again. It was fun playing with you again. It was a good night. And just that already gave me such a warm feeling of people recognizing me and people accepting me and people, just saying goodnight to me. That was already such a big thing for me back then.
So for the first time, you're feeling part of rather than separate from, you know,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I felt like I could be myself. Like I said, that when I was in the real world, I was ashamed of who I was and ashamed of who I was being at that point, and someone who was just basically people pleasing everything and everyone, and still not being able to meet other people's expectations. That's how I felt like. But when I was online, people reacted like this and they accepted me and they were okay with me being there. It felt like such a warm and safe world to me,
Mm.
compared to the real world.
And I think that's something that comes up a lot. I'm actually engaged in working with someone at the minute who's just starting to reveal, that good behavior mask is starting to slip. And he's starting to talk more about the reason I think his mum's got me to talk to him, which is gaming. That she already gave me a heads up that it was that, but he hadn't mentioned it until just recently. And I asked him the question, because this is what he gets from it, is he says it's sociable.
Very.
It's sociable, and I'm asking him the question because I asked him, why are you doing it? And how does that make you feel? Because there are two questions that I like to use a lot. Why are you doing something, and how does it make you feel? And his answer to that was, well, it's because I can hang out with my mates. It's sociable. Right. So how does it make you feel? Right. Great. I love it. It's fun. Does it bring you joy? Yeah, it brings me joy. So it's really hard if you're getting connection and it's
Mhm.
fun and it brings you joy and you've got social, then how can for me, it's like, well, I've got to sort of encourage that in some ways because that's what we're all looking for. And that's a good thing, surely. But
Yeah.
it's almost like, how long are in that realm of connection is it obsessive? Are you obsessively chasing that? Or, is it healthy basically?
There's a point where it becomes unhealthy, where indeed you start. I always say whenever your daily life um, going down because of it, that's when it becomes really unhealthy, which is a very delicate line to walk on, honestly. Um, for me, it was definitely obsessive because eventually it was the only place I was basically living in. I had that online world. I was just not going outside anymore. I was such a when I got into the clinic myself, people described me as a little ghost because that's how white I was back then.
Oh my
Um,
God, yeah.
just no sun, always the blinds down. The only time I would go outside of my room was either to go to the toilet or to get a sandwich, and that's it.
Did you change your pants?
Yeah, yeah, I did. Luckily, I got into the habit of doing that. Yeah.
I'm sort of joking, but I'm also sort of being serious because, hygiene and I've come across a few people, who yeah, I'm kind of I can speak for myself actually. Hygiene, when you're entangled in obsessive behavior, you kind of your self-care goes out the window a little bit, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
So that's a flag right there. Do you feel your parents, they must have, I mean, at what point are your parents starting to see, alarm bells and the red flags?
When it exactly happened, I don't really know. But they have told me before, like, "Hey, Victor, you're addicted to that thing. You need to stop. You need to do something different. You need to do something with your life." And I was like, "Ah, no, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. You don't worry. I'll be fine." So I always dismissed it very quickly whenever they would talk about it. I was in full blown denial because I thought it wasn't that bad. I did not realize how bad things were, until there was a moment where it's the moment I just got kicked out of school as well, because they didn't want me anymore because I was either going to school and just playing on my laptop, playing games, or I was just skipping school and just staying at home because I felt so sick. Um, so there was a moment where I got kicked out of school, and my mom came up to me, and she really, um, she first of all got my attention first, and really sat down with me and really had a moment with me where she said, Victor, I just don't know what to do anymore. And what are you going to do in your future? Um, so she wanted to have a very actually good conversation with me talking about what I was going to do. But in that conversation, I got so incredibly angry at her and I really shouted at her and I told her that she was to blame for all of this and it was all her fault and she raised me that way and really talking down on her to a point where she actually started crying and just ran out of the room. And the moment I saw that was a moment where I first realized, fuck me, I need to do something about this. This is not okay. I'm getting my mom to cry is a step too far for me.
Okay, look, thank you so much for being so honest and sharing that, because that's you know, it is shit, and I'm not having a go at you there, because I relate, and I have to hold my hands up, I've been that person as well, and it's shit, and that's why that feeling we get of we hate on ourselves because we know we could do better,
Yeah.
and we know we're falling short. We know that. We know that we're not meant to be living our lives this way. We know that we could do better, and we feel inadequate, and we feel shit about that, and that shame comes up. But if you're anything like me, that's the stuff I then push back down with whatever to suppress that feeling so it goes away, because I don't want to feel that shit. And like you, that denial that you mentioned is strong, right? It's like
Very.
it's the nemesis of addiction, is the denial. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Um, so although you connected and started to join the dots that this is shit and maybe you need to, well, you need to do better and you need to change it, did you actually action that straight away?
I did, but maybe not in the way that everyone wants to. I tried another suicidal attempt.
Oh.
Because I was at that point where I felt like, fuck me, I really need to do something about this. And I really got to a point where I really started feeling people are going to be so much better off without me. And I know it's a very hard thing to think, and it kind of shows the madness and the insanity that I was in at the time. I really thought if I were to kill myself right now, my parents and my sister and my family is going to mourn for me for about a month or two, and then they can move on. And that's worth it to me.
So that sounds like you're feeling very sorry for yourself.
Very, yeah.
Poor Victor.
Exactly. Exactly.
God, I used to lie in bed every night and I was fantasizing about my funeral. I had my playlist. I need a playlist to my funeral. I need a seating
Wow.
arrangement. Yeah, it's going to be a big funeral. It's mad how where the head goes, eh?
Absolutely. Especially when you're in such a thought of insanity as well. I think one of the strongest things and also one of the most things that I find insane looking back at it. One of the ways that I kept myself in denial, and one of the kind of reasons I used to tell myself that everything I was doing is okay is by saying to myself, I'm not doing anything, so I'm not doing anything wrong. Because I mean, I was just playing games in my room. I wasn't doing anything. So, what can I do wrong while doing this?
So that's the level of denial, right? Is you are telling yourself that because it's gaming and gaming's normal, perfectly okay to game, so there's no problem.
Yeah.
But it's the I guess the question, why are you doing it and how does it make you feel at that point? Why are you doing it at that point, Victor?
I um I was doing it to escape again,
Simple.
I just wanted to go away from everything.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't want to feel it, didn't want to see it, didn't want to hear it.
But how's it making you feel in all reality? That's the reason for doing it. But how's it actually making you feel? You getting any? Do you still feel socially connected to people? You having fun still?
Absolutely not. The only real connection I had back then was a Wi-Fi connection. But that's really about it.
Oh my God. And this time frame, from you finding it to you hitting the lowest of, you know, the pits of despair and hopelessness and wanting to end your life. What's that time frame?
I think it really happened to really get at that point. Like I said, it started when I was 12, and this was about when I was 19. So
Okay.
throughout those teenage years, I just really started going downhill further and further.
All right. And is it fair to say academically you kind of disfranchised from that and just you disconnected and dissociated and just isolated and alienated yourself away from everything that you could have been doing at that point, like
Yeah,
college, uni? Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. I really sold myself short, and I really had some. When I got into recovery, I really had some gaining up to do. I really had um, to work hard to really get to a point where I was educated myself as well. But I think one of the things that really helped with that, when I was 16, I had to get a study. I had to start doing a study, and I remember going to this day where there was this huge school here in the Netherlands, which was kind of showing off all of the studies that they had. Um, and I went there with my dad, and there was this study to become a cameraman and an editor for TV and for movies and those kind of things. And I remember him saying to me, Victor, that that's something for you. I really think that that's something that would suit you. So I was like, well, sure. If my dad says it, then I wanted his approval. So I was like, yeah, sure, fuck it, I'll try it. Um, I've tried that study for 4 years and didn't get further than the second year because it was just so terrible and it really was not my thing. And learned some skills that are applicable now and then, which is nice. But at the same time, it was so not something that was for me. And when I eventually went to the clinic and we're done with my program, I finally kind of knew what I wanted to do. I finally found my identity. So the first thing I did when leaving the clinic was applying for a study that gets people into youth work, into youth care here in the Netherlands. And even though it was hard gaining up and gaining speed, because I also entered the year 6 weeks too late, because that's just when I left the clinic. At the same time, I finally felt like I was doing it for something. I finally had the motivation to get out of bed and go to school, and I knew what I was doing it for, and that really helped me in putting in that work, and really gave me strength and energy to
Mm.
actually get through that.
Wow. That's like you found your purpose, obviously.
Yeah.
With that is connection, feeling part of something, that is um beneficial to yourself and to something outside of yourself, being of service to others, which I know for myself is really crucial in having a very solid um uplifting experience of recovery, and finding yourself, that journey of self-discovery and self-development,
Mhm.
evolution. Wow, amazing. So with the college stuff and you knowing or realizing that that wasn't for you, how did you, I think you touched on it earlier, how did you find recovery, your recovery?
It really started when I went to the clinic and where I was introduced to recovery. And the clinic that I went to works with a bit of a shorter version of the 12 steps. Um, and I connected that with that a lot. And I really saw it as, well, as most people say, it's a very simple program for very complicated people. I really connected
Yeah.
with that because it's a very simple thing. It's well, the 12 steps itself as well. It's just 12 little rules you have to follow, and then things will go well. basically.
Yeah.
And after having learned those steps, or the shorter version that we work with in the clinic, um, I really got to a point where I felt like, yeah, I can do this again. I built up self-confidence. I built up an identity, finally knew, or at least started to know who I was. Because I think identity is a thing that that develops and that, like you say, evolves throughout time as well. So
Mm.
I remember when coming out of the clinic, I felt very confident knowing who I was, and then 2 weeks later, I already was like, "Fuck, shit, no, never mind." I discovered new things about myself again.
Exactly.
So I think that really helped getting into recovery. And when I eventually was in recovery, I just had to do a lot of maintenance. And the maintenance for me was, especially in the first couple of years, almost religiously going through to 2 meetings every week, which are our self support groups, which is going to a sponsor, really talking to someone every day, really keeping myself connected to people, and doing the step workbook that you can get from fellowships. So I really worked hard on really getting those basics down. And I remember in the beginning, um, I really felt like I was someone who really was like this hardcore self support group person, basically. Uh, and even though I was very convinced that the way that I was taught was the only way, and I luckily found that there's loads of other ways that people can
Yeah.
either find their recovery or get into that. But I really feel having those couple of years of being so rigid about it
Yeah. Yeah.
really gets me to a point where now, for example, whenever I'm not feeling well, I just know what to do, because hey, I've really implemented those basics in myself the first couple of years. I
Yeah.
was I must have been a very shitty person for people, like really know it all. At the same time, really bullshit. So
Yep. Spiritual grandiose, mate.
absolutely, oh, I felt on top of the world.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I relate again because my journey similar in a way. I did about 4 years of a really solid, very dedicated, very disciplined. Um, I call it like it's like a rite of passage.
Yeah,
That them steps that you talk about, for anyone that doesn't understand what they are, just look them up. 12 steps. They're associated to certain support groups across the world. They seem to help a hell of a lot of people, and they don't cost any. It doesn't cost you a penny to do it. And the way I see it is, for me, my experience of doing it was, I was cautious, I was suspicious,
mm,
I was, I had to build trust around that process. But when I did, throw myself into it and do it, it served as a rite of passage.
mm,
I never really had a proper rite of passage when I was at the age to have it. You know, um, that coming of age process, I skipped it. I never really grew up. That is, in my opinion, what avoidance and dissociation, and hiding and avoiding, deflecting, escaping is, you know, not taking
yeah,
accountability for that coming of age process. You don't grow up, you become a man
yeah,
baby.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and so when I hit a wall like you did, and I started this journey like you did, that was what it was. It was a rite of passage. It was a means for me to have this sort of journey of coming of age, which I never had when I needed it. And I started to grow up, and it was fucking amazing. Um, but for me, I felt like once I'd done that journey, and it took about, I guess the initial, yeah, it was like the first sort of 4 to 5 years of that journey of the early days was my foundation. And then, like you, I sort of started to look outside of it at other other pathways to
Mm.
explore. And here I am still doing that. So it's fucking
Cool.
beautiful journey, man. So thank you for sharing that. It's not always good to, it's what I like about you. I like meeting people who, explore and are curious and don't just stick with one thing. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It really helps a lot of people. So if that's what you want to stick with it. But I wasn't one of them. And it's always good to talk to other people because I'm not alone.
Yeah, yeah, and it's nice having done it so rigidly because that did get me connected to all the people in the fellowship that I was going to, and to a lot of people with similar backgrounds, with similar circumstances, who also wanted to get better and to feel better themselves. And it is those places, it was the meetings that I went to myself, where someone eventually asked me the question, who I was without my addiction. And I think that was such an interesting question back then, having um, really engulfed myself into the world of addiction for 4 years, and really working on my recovery and really working on doing all those steps. It was all I knew at a certain point. And when someone came up to me after the meeting and really said to me, Victor, who is left if you take away your addiction? Let's say you're not addicted right now, it's fixed, then what's left? And I was speechless. I was like, yeah, nothing, because that's all I am right now.
Yeah, yeah,
And it really opened my eyes to the fact that there's so
yeah,
much more than that.
yeah,
Really
yeah.
got me to explore again. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. That's great. It's a really healthy thing to explore. Really healthy for me,
Yeah.
for anyone, I believe, because, I'm not defined by that. It's a story that once played out. You know,
Yeah.
I can be completely liberated and free from that shit. And I am, moment to moment, day to day, if I'm, you know, exploring who am I outside of that,
Mm.
because it's expansive. There's a lot more to it. Great. Thank you for sharing that. So you had to um, get your own house in order, if you want to put it like that, before
Mm.
you could then establish, this is what I'm going to do with my life.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
you started to connect to that. And then, so you went to, obviously, you are now at the place that you were treated. How did that come about?
Uh, well, I actually, since the beginning, since I left the clinic, um, I've always been connected to the place itself, and I've always been asked. One of the things how I got into the clinic myself, and that whole intervention that my parents eventually organized for me, was through a TV program in the Netherlands, actually. Um, so I've been on Dutch TV for that back
Have,
in the
have
day.
you?
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
know that. Where can I
So
see this?
nowhere, actually. Unfortunately,
Where?
they took down all the episodes of that season that I was in, and
What the fuck?
yeah.
I
So
don't know.
I still have it. I can send it to you.
Please,
You can
I wanna
watch,
see this, man.
of course. So so I remember when I got out of the clinic, the communications department of the place that I work at right now, every now and then would call me and be like, "Hey, we've got this news program that wants to do an item about gaming addiction. Would you mind helping out and talking?" Because, well, I was in front of a camera anyway already, and there was a point where I felt like when the episode that I wasn't aired, I got a message from someone that said there was about 1.25 million people watching. So I was like, well, yeah, fuck it. Everyone knows my story anyway already, so who cares? So they are usually ask me to do these interviews, or help out wherever needed. And if someone from the media asked them if they could find someone with a gaming addiction to help. So in that way, I always was connected a little bit. When I was doing my study, I did an internship for the place that I work at right now as well.
Yeah.
I kind of wormed myself in there by a lot of nagging and a lot of talking and a lot of calling. Um, So eventually I got myself an internship. And after the internship, I took some time off from the place because I remember I had this mentor at school who really said, Victor, you got such tunnel vision on addiction care and actually just one place. So broaden your view, mate. So he really helped me broaden that view a little bit,
Mm.
and really start doing something else first. So I actually did an internship in Nepal, where I helped on a daycare for people with a handicap, which was really interesting and really fun and totally something different, really opened my eyes. So the moment I got back home and finished my study, I actually started working in a care home for youth with a mental disability. Um,
Yeah.
so I thought, I'd try that first, and I worked there for about 2.5 years. When I also started building up my own company, where I started doing talks about gaming addiction to schools and to foundations and other people. And through that company, I eventually, when COVID hit, I remember the founder of the place that I went to put a message on LinkedIn that they needed some help, because they were short on staff, and things were hectic, especially in the beginning of COVID. So I just messaged him and just to see if he needed help, and that's how I became a coach in the clinic for a while, until a point where they said we want to have you full time for the place where I work at right now as a case manager.
Amazing. And I remember that time of because I was really active. I was actually probably busier than I've ever been throughout COVID because I was transporting, doing a lot of transporting, getting getting the asset, as I would call it, the young person, the maverick. I'd be transporting them from point A to point B, point A wherever they were in the world to point B, and a lot of the time it would be over to you guys.
Mm.
So I was loving it. I loved that time. There's no one on planes. There was no one at airports. It was just such a quiet time. I mean, obviously it was fucking horrendous what was going on with COVID, but
Yeah.
to work at that time, being on the front line, and that's when I started to, I think, get to know you a bit
Yeah.
because, yeah, that was sort of the time that you was starting to get into the case management and be in the office, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Um, and I know you're known. I mean, a lot of the people that I deal with, they're like, "Oh yeah, Victor," is you're just direct, man. You're just straight
I'm
to the
I'm
point.
honest. Yeah, I'm
You
honest.
are, you are. You just see
Yeah.
through the bullshit, right?
Yeah, and I like to think that I can be honest, and I want to be honest to those people as well, because every time I'm in front of someone who might need help, yes or no, I respect them enough to be honest to them,
Mhm.
because I have such massive respect for them, even sitting across to me on either a video call or across the table from me. I have such massive respect that they had the balls basically to show up, um, that I do want to be honest to them. I want to be able um, to tell them what I see and what I hear, and tell them about my own experience, because I think that's one of the most powerful things as well, and that's how I was how I got trust in the place when I went to it myself. Is the first person that I spoke to was someone who'd been through it, and the first thing they did was tell their own story and basically show me you're not alone. Um, and that helped me so much in the beginning of
Mm.
my own recovery, because I finally felt like, oh, there's hope. There are people like me out there. There are people who are struggling. There are people who've been through it and have gotten out of it. How the hell
Mm.
do I do that? Please teach
Yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah. Oh, it's so potent, man. And I just thought, right? So when we was just talking about the whole COVID time, right?
Mm.
And there was a lot of people coming in for treatment. Screen addiction.
Oh, it's huge.
Because I remember the stats was it, I don't know, like let's just say out of every um how many clients do you have, or I'm gonna call them clients. How many clients do you have at any one given time at the place you're at? Is it
Usually
22?
between 20 and 25. Yeah.
Right. And I'd say statistically, before pre-COVID, screen addiction, how many out of those, say 20,
Yeah,
25?
there would be one every now and then. I would say then about three,
Okay.
maybe four.
Then COVID?
I would definitely say about 12 to 15.
Yeah, I think it's 80% it went up to.
Yeah,
Something
there
like
were
that.
so many.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. And
which is it's I mean it makes sense because that's eventually all that people had to really make a connection with people.
yeah.
They had to do it through a screen. I mean, they had to do classes through the screen. You know, they had to follow school through screens. They had that's all they had because they weren't
Mm,
allowed to leave their house.
mm,
So on one hand, actually a really great gift that we had all of this technology to be able to connect to people. But at the same time, it did show a lot more how addictive it can be and how much people can lose themselves in
mm,
screens. And I predicted. I remember there was this news station that came up to me when COVID started and wanted to ask me about, what do you think will do with gaming addiction? And I said, I think it will be less easy to hide because honestly, gaming addiction is really easy to hide from people because you're just in your room. The only people that know about that is your parents. But I think the most severe cases will come out when society starts opening up again, when
mhm.
people need to go back to school or back to their jobs or back to things. It's the people who keep isolating and who stop going to school or work or whatever they're doing in their daily life. That's the severe people that need help.
And I can categorically say right now, because I've got the data and I haven't got
Mhm.
that on like a spreadsheet with all like facts and figures like, some people have. I don't need that fucking data. I've got the observations, like, the being, part of many, many, many cases, as you know,
Mhm.
of that data, that them observations, that experience, seeing it firsthand, the problems that are still today going on post that time we're talking about, and
Yeah.
it's years on now. I mean, we got back on the gerbil wheel because I always said this. We all got off the gerbil, the hamster wheel, whatever you want to call it, for
Mhm.
COVID. The world slowed down, lockdown, everyone got off the gerbil, the hamster wheel. I always, like you predicted, I predicted that when we go back to it, by its very nature, the hamster, the gerbil, when it gets back on the wheel, it will go faster.
Mm.
And it has done, in my opinion. Right. So it's like the world's sped up, more and more content than ever before, more and more to distract yourself and escape. But, you know, has it changed? The world's got faster, in my opinion, but have people got back to it, or are they still stuck in that sort of, you know, mindset,
Mm.
or addiction, even if you want to call it that?
Mm.
I don't know. What is it? Are we 3 years on from that time?
Yeah.
Something like that, maybe.
Is it? Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's about 4 years now already.
And there's definitely people that are still suffering, still
Yeah,
entangled in that behavior of completely and utterly, uh, yeah, like,
absolutely. Well, I mean, usually speak to the parents and the families before people come to our place, and I make a habit of really writing down and taking note of okay, what has happened in the last couple of years? How did it lead up to the point where you guys are at right now? And whenever I ask those questions of asking the parents to kind of take me through the story of the kid that they're usually calling for, they mention so many times it started when COVID started, or it really started getting worse when COVID started, or the word COVID comes up so often when I have these conversations with parents, and you can really see that it puts such a huge mark on the mental well-being of all the youth that well we see right now, and that is struggling, especially right now.
Yeah, yeah. So to land on that point, just a bit of um, insight, your own insight into your own experience and working. So you've got both sides of the picture there.
Mm.
For anyone that's listening who might sort of go, hang about, I think this is relative to what's going on in my house. Maybe it's a parent listening or whatever. What could what's the best sort of advice you could encourage anyone to maybe look at?
I think one of the biggest things that we lost during that COVID time is real connection, and that's something that I well sometimes still struggle with to this day. Whenever I'm not feeling well, I still tend to isolate myself from people and kind of back off. And even though I'm living together with a girlfriend, trust me, I still know how to isolate. I've had conversation with my girlfriend already where I wasn't feeling well, where she came up to me and it's like you're just not there. You're sitting in the room, but it's like you're just disconnected from everything and everyone. So that connection is something that I feel is so incredibly important for people to have,
Mm,
because for me, it's what keeps me sane as well. Um, that connection, and then again not mean through the Wi-Fi connection, not the virtual world kind of thing, real world connection. Feel like you belong somewhere. I really feel like everyone should have a safe place, where they could feel like they fit in and feel like they belong. And if you don't have a place like that, go out and try to find it. Go join a sports club or a union or whatever is around you. I think it just could really help to be part of something.
100%, 100% in all the right areas, you
Yeah,
know? So that's great advice there. Awesome. So let's talk about burnout.
that's good.
Because I know it sounds completely like random. What?
Yeah.
Gone from like gone from like gone from like lockdown and disconnection versus, being part of something and reconnecting, being um to burnout. But I know it well and you know it as well.
Mhm,
Um
definitely.
it's part of your story. How did you get to a burnout? Because is it fair to say your gaming, was that a burnout, do you feel, emotionally, mentally, spiritually?
Maybe. I've never really thought of it in that way. It was definitely me over asking myself and being at a point where I really talked myself down so much, like put my own bar way too high, which just got me tired and so incredibly tired.
Mhm.
So there are definitely some similarities, and I I know it sounds really great when I talk about when a little bit earlier I spoke about how I started working and doing an internship in Nepal and made my own company and really started working for myself. And on one hand, I'm really proud of those achievements that I did, and at the same time, it sounds a lot easier than it really was. Because I've been struggling throughout when I was working for those youth with a mental handicap. I actually got my first burnout already. Um, I am someone who really, and that's something I've gotten from my past, of that people pleasing part of me that wants other people to go before myself.
Mhm, mhm.
And I care about other people's needs more than I care about my own,
Yeah,
which on one hand is a very normal thing for someone who's in the world of care to have, I feel, but at the same time, it can be quite unhealthy as well. And
yeah.
back in that day, it became really unhealthy. And I've gotten to the point quite recently as well where I just started giving a lot more of myself than I was really taking back, and started giving a lot more energy than I was getting, and um, even though there's a lot of external circumstances that helped me get to this point, to put it like that. Like I had some troubles with my parents again, and really that feeling of me not feeling good enough became such a big thing again in my life, and such a big topic, um, that which eventually made me put that bar up really high again as well. And I always say I put the bar so incredibly high that I can jump all I want, but I can't reach it anyway. And the more I jump, the more tired my legs got, and the more tired my legs got, the worse I felt about not being able to jump as high as I could. Um, so I got into this little cycle again, where I just didn't feel good enough about myself, which, yeah, actually right now got me into a state of a burnout again. And I really gotta be easy on myself. I'm back in therapy, back working on those exact things. Um,
Yep.
and even though I know, because rationally, I think that's one of the curses of having so much experience in recovery already as well. I know what I should be doing, and I know that, for example, I am way too hard on myself, and I know that I should be kinder to myself. Um, but knowing is such a different thing than actually doing. And because I'm not doing it, I'm also punishing myself for not doing that. So it's this incredibly tough paradox in my head constantly, where I'm blaming myself for things that I'm not doing, but I know that I shouldn't be blaming myself. But why am I blaming myself then? It just goes around and around and around.
You have just described something that I think is universally for everyone. Like literally, I mean, I certainly can identify to that, man. I mean, geez. And you know, I can't speak for everyone else, but I suspect that there's a lot of other people that'll be like, oh my God, I do that as well. But so the way I see it, because you said it so well, um, and I really do. I identify to that because it's been part of my story, not just in you know, my formative years when I was stuck in a perpetuating cycle of, you know, suffering, but in my recovery, self-discovery, you know, self-development, evolution, redemption part of, you know, the years that I'm in now. You know, it could still play out. It's something that I believe is it's just part of the fabric of the way that humans are wired in a certain way, I believe anyway. You know, it's maybe not everyone has this, but those that do will certainly identify as well, is that sort of the nature of how it perpetuates.
Mm,
I think the key to it for me is, if I'm doing the right things, it won't happen.
yeah.
So maintenance, you know, moment to moment, daily reprieve of doing certain things, you know, the good stuff, to prevent that stuff from coming into your thought process and your behavior. But then when it does, because we're human, we don't always get things right.
Mm,
And we do have a response to life on an emotional level. So, you know, like you say about, you know, wanting to get validation and people please and all that stuff, you know, we want to feel connected. We want to feel part of, we want to feel liked. So, from an emotional standpoint, you know, it makes sense to me that sometimes I'm going to, you know, chase things that I shouldn't to get that at my detriment, even now, you know, but rarely do I get to a point now where I'll hit a burnout because of it, because I've had a few. I
mm,
think I've had about four in the last sort of couple of decades or whatever, where, you know, in the last 16 years, for sure, I've had about four, you know, where I've hit a wall and I've burnt out emotionally, mentally, spiritually, because I'm
mm,
not doing the maintenance, you know, but that's
yeah.
okay, you know. But now for me, it's catching it before it happens.
And I think I'm curious whether is this something you might recognize then as well with your experience. I'm reading a book about habits right now and how habits work and how habits come to be, and I think it got me to reflect a little bit on my habits before I get to the place where I'm at right now. And I think one of the bad habits that I really started picking up again was comparing myself to other people,
Mm,
and usually in such a way where I feel like an example of a thought that went through my head a lot already as well is I am in the same position career wise for about 4 years now. Why have I not moved up the career ladder, for
mm,
example? This is one of the ways that I've been punishing myself a little bit every now and then in my own
mm,
head, where I've really started comparing myself to other people. And I think that's
mm.
how that bar, when I talk about that bar that's so high, I think that's how it's
Yeah,
came to be as well.
yeah,
I don't compare it to what I can do and
mm,
where I would be satisfied with, but where other people are.
yeah. I mean, what you've just said there, that's the cause, not the root cause, but a
Mm.
attribute to a lot of male suicide.
It's true.
Um, you know, Switzerland is one example of that, where the bar is raised so high for, to achieve and be climbing that ladder. But you could say the same about any country. Doesn't matter.
Mm,
Borders, countries, it doesn't matter. I mean, and it's not just um for men, for anyone, any human can be
mm,
affected by that. For me, I feel like there's a lot of safety in for me anyway, working for myself because I've already determined I'm very content with where I'm at, and I have been for a very long time. And
mm,
yeah, I'm not perfect, but I don't feel like I'm trying to climb a ladder, you
mm,
know, career wise. I'm not chasing that. I've already figured out that that doesn't really equate to my happiness. So for me, it's more like you know, to do with my well-being is not defined by my career ladder, if that
mm,
makes sense, or how many zeros I have or haven't got in my bank account. It's more to do with, you know, um, do I feel, have I got peace in my life? And for me, working my fucking little titties off, um, is when I get burnout. Them 3 or 4 burnouts I said that I've had in the last sort of, 15, 16 years, whatever, have all been work related. It's when I'm chasing that shit and I'm not actually just sitting and being still and having solitude and just alone time, even if it's like, a couple of hours a day or whatever, where I feel really, I can drop my shoulders and take a huge breath in and out, a handful of times and feel and really sink into that really beautiful feeling of serenity, of bliss, a bliss state of contentment, of just being, which is really rare for a lot of people to do, including myself, and I had to learn how to do that. So I have that now, and I've had it for a fair while. I've had it for since the last burnout. I swore I'm never going to have a burnout again,
mm,
and I've had a good run since then because I've learned from it. I had to have about 3 or 4 burnouts to actually go, right, okay, that's it. And I've got it. Lesson
mm,
learned. you know, Does that make
mm.
sense? What I'm saying?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think I'm really getting to the point, or I've been getting to that point the last week or 2 weeks myself as well already, where I really start seeing this not as a failure, but really as a, I can just learn from this. Whatever happens, happens, and
Exactly.
it's really about, as you've been saying, and you say quite a lot as well, about just trust.
Mm.
Just trust in that everything will be all right, which in the beginning was very hard for me to do when I just got into this into this tough period of my life. But it helps. It really helps finding the peace.
Yeah. And that peace of mind comes when trust, it's all interlinked. So to trust, we need to feel at ease, and we will feel at ease if we trust, you know? It's one of those. And for me, I have to experience some fucking shit. I have to get entangled in some clusterfucks. And it doesn't have to be like, you know, back in the day when I was in the madness of all the crazy shit running around, you know, none of that. Like, yeah, of course, I experienced a lot of that, but look where that got me. Got me to this part of my life. Wow, amazing. So it's a necessary component, you know. Excuse me, it's a necessary component. So for me, my understanding of, you know, the life hack for me is being okay with whatever.
Yeah.
That's it. Making peace with whatever. You know, whether I'm having a shit day, it's okay. It's okay. Like, or I'm having a really great day. Well, of course, that's great. I'm okay with that. But us mad humans, we seem to have this sort of knee-jerk reaction to the whatever. And we've got to learn how to accept and make peace with whatever, because and I'm one of them. I had to learn because my old reaction to that whatever, if I'm having a bad day, I don't want to feel that shit. That's an inconvenience. No, thank you. I'm going to do something to try and alter my experience so that I don't have to fucking deal with that shit. Thank you very much. And what I've learned through, you know, the burnouts that I've had, you know, is to just slow it down a bit and to have more of a skillful response to life, you know, because if I'm chasing around, chasing a career and look, there's nothing wrong with that. Of course, you know, everyone wants to have, you know, a sense of pride, a healthy sense of pride, you know, an achievement, but it's the way we do it, you know, we've got to,
Yeah.
we've got to have ourselves in check first before we can really achieve it properly.
Yeah, one thing that I'm already hearing from your story as well is to not look for that quick fix. Just let it be for a bit, and just, you know, the solution will come whenever it needs to come.
Exactly that, man. Yeah. Because I think, again, us mad fucking humans, and I say
Yeah.
um, we kind of want to feel the good stuff all the time.
Yeah,
But
'cause
that's,
it's nice.
yeah, of course, there's nothing wrong with
Yeah.
that. Instant gratification all the time. But that's kind of like where we're at in the grand scheme of things. I think we're in this place in life. It's getting very philosophical now, but this is where we're at in the evolution of things, is that we are all dialed in to wanting instant gratification all the time because there's so much that can grant us that all the time. It's on 24/7 all the time. And there's a myriad of ways to attain it. Take your pick. So for me, it's about just not getting too caught up in all of that, and just to actually, my instant gratification I can get is just from sitting and feeling inner peace. I know it sounds really, really, like, you know, out there, but it's fucking beautiful.
I agree. It was yesterday when me and my girlfriend and her aunt actually went out for dinner to this place, which was next to a huge forest with a huge lake,
Mm.
where I really sat down for a moment. I was like, oh, I can enjoy this again,
Mm.
which was such a nice feeling again.
Yeah, there you go. So another example of someone who, like me, like you, couldn't sit with ourselves, and then you go on this journey, a rite of passage, transformative. Um, do you feel like, um, I'm just interested to know, because being a gaming addict, right, at that time in your life when you was addicted to gaming, and then you go to a treatment center to treat it, you, and I know obviously the process because I know it, you're not allowed any device, no screens.
No, correct.
So did you go through like a withdrawal?
Yeah, a
Like,
little bit. I always, and maybe I'm making it bigger than it is, but it really felt that I was, well, not even like officially hallucinating, but I was really seeing things. Like whenever I was walking through the forest, I saw a rock and I was like, I recognize this rock. This rock has been in this and this game on this and this map, and it looked exactly the same.
fuck you
So
know.
my head really did everything it could to just remind me of those days, basically.
Did your like therapist look like Super Mario?
Luckily not, but my God, that would have been
Imagine,
bad.
imagine.
That would have been bad.
I'm just trying to think if there's anyone there who does look like Super Mario. Oh my God. So, yeah, that's mad that you, so that association. So, do you feel like that's your mind trying to cling on to something that you don't want to let go of?
Absolutely, yeah, that's exactly how it felt like. Like it was just kind of grasping at everything it could to get me back into that quick fix, into that easy solution that I've known and had done for so long. Really trying to get back to the easy way out.
Fuck. So, you had a digital detox. Um, it's so hard, isn't it, in this modern world to have that?
It is, it is. But I must say, after the first couple of weeks, it was so nice as well. It was so nice
Mm.
and quiet, and you don't get stimulation from your phone every single minute or every single second, basically, these days by getting notifications or chats from people or whatever. Um, it was tough, but at the same time, it was so freeing and relieving as well.
So, how do you manage? Um, like you've got a phone, right? And
Yeah,
you've got a computer, and you work in front of a computer.
yeah, yeah.
How does that work? How do you manage that?
When I just left the clinic, I kind of made a sort of plan for myself where it was like if I talk about the laptop, for example, I can go on my laptop if I'm working for school or doing homework as many as I can, or as much as I can, because that's just needed. But if I look at, for example, watching YouTube videos or watching a Netflix series or watching a movie, I really had rules for myself, like one movie um, per day, not more. And not that I was watching so many movies, or if I was watching Netflix, I would only do 2 episodes per day. Or if I was watching YouTube, I would give myself a certain time slot to be able to watch YouTube videos and then stop. And then I made rules for myself where um, what I just explained was then I called it the green part, so that was fine. Then I had a yellow part. If I start watching YouTube videos between that and that time, ooh, I should watch out. And I was very tough on myself. There was a certain point where I just said I had the red color and at the bottom. And I said if I reach that, I'm gonna count that as a relapse.
Mm,
And
wow.
by kind of keeping myself to these rules, and really getting myself disciplined in that as well, and keep following those rules and keeping being honest with myself, especially.
Yeah, yeah,
I've
yeah.
held those rules for the first 2, 3 years of my recovery, which also helped me just implement it and kind of make it a basics for me.
Yeah. Wow. So it's just been having the awareness there in place, knowing what having bottom lines, just
Yeah,
guidelines to know, like having that red amber traffic light
yeah, exactly.
sort of process so that you have a guideline to work with and it's about being dedicated to it. I believe we've got to have dedication. You've got to
Yeah,
have you've got to want to do it.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And for that, you need a reason to do it. I always say there's two sides of motivation. There's motivation of knowing where you do not want to be, and I think that that's really a strong example of that is how I got into the clinic because I knew that I did not want to be at the place where I was at that time. So I had motivation to change it, but I think it was so important for me, especially in my recovery, to eventually also start getting to motivation for where I want to go to. And I really think that those two sides of motivation are important, where you do not want to be and where you want to go to.
Yeah.
And you need both to be able to have enough motivation to really achieve something and to do something. You need to know that I do not want to be at the place where I was 10 years ago. And I want to know where I want to go in life. So have goals for myself.
Yeah. Bloody brilliant. Love that. I think that's a really good way to end this conversation. I mean, that says it all. I mean, that's a really good marker. If anyone is listening, just use what Victor just said to give yourself a mind map or a road map that can, just answer those two, establish those two opposing things, come up with an answer. Hopefully you'll come up with an answer and just fucking go for it. Don't hang about, otherwise the years will just pass you by in your pants without changing your pants.
Exactly. And then you look back, you think like, fuck, I fucked up. That shouldn't have done that.
I know, right? God, if only I'd done it earlier. But it was, it is what it is. If only I had I just needed, I think this is where mentors come in, and I see you as a mentor to a lot of young people. Because sometimes we just need someone who has, like you said it as part of your story. It's part of my story. There was someone that came in who was like a mentor who'd already walked the path and just sort of could recognize in me, this is what you're doing, mate. But you don't have to do that, because you can do it this way. You have the answers. So
Yeah.
do your research, people. If you're not sure, there's plenty of good stuff out there. There's a lot of fucking charlatans out there as well, but there's a lot of good people out there. So be discerning, trust your instincts, your gut, go with what feels right, because it normally is a lot of the time.
Absolutely. And don't forget, you're not alone.
Indeed, never, no matter how bad it is. All right, Victor, I'm going to end it. It's been beautiful having you on.
Thank you so much, Dave. It was really nice.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me on there.
you're a very inspirational guy. You help a lot of people, and it's a joy to collaborate with you. So I look forward to the next one, mate. Okay, take care of yourself. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much, Dave. Take care.
Ciao. See you later, mate.
Bye.